we have any apologies?
Councillor Campbell.
Councillor Campbell. And Councillor Reynolds, I imagine, will be here later. We'll move on to the confirmation of minutes of the last meeting, 9th of April. Recommendation of minutes for Sorell Planning Authority be confirmed. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Beth, and the seconder, Councillor Gatehouse. We'll call for a vote on that. So here, unanimous, good. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest?
Sorry, Chair, just had a text saying Councillor Reynolds is an apology. He's still stuck at work. I'll fix that.
Declarations of pecuniary interest. Anyone troubled by this? Nope. Actually, considering the following land use planning matters, the Sorell Planning Authority intends to act as planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. The first issue is 5.1, which is a subdivision application for 25 lot subdivision at 223 to 227 Carlton River Road. Nice piece of land, I went past there today. Can I have a mover and seconder, please, to consider this matter? Councillor Gatehouse and Councillor Nichols, thank you. Well, I think I should listen to my friend Shane here. He might explain to us. Do you want to give us a quick outline before I ask for questions, or would you rather take questions without an outline?
No, happy to give an outline.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
The mayor, okay, so it's a 25 lot subdivision of the former, it was Carlton Camp is what it was called back originally. It's amongst the existing residential areas, the residential development on either side. The lot size is proposed, the majority of lots are seeking performance criteria or discretion on the minimum lot size below the 1500 to no less than 1200 square metres. Although that's smaller than what this team would typically say, as you can see in the photo, that lot size proposed is much larger than what's surrounding it. Challenges with the site have been with respect to water, wastewater and stormwater. They've ticked those issues off. The stormwater network requires at the southernmost point of the lot a small detention basin, which is integrated into the sort of the public open space network, the walkway through to Terry Street.
Do you have any questions on this matter?
I'll start. The decommissioning of the septic tanks on lots 1, 2 and 25 and this absorption trenches, are they going to be replaced or are they just going to be left until the properties are sold?
No, they need to be replaced.
Right.
As part of the stage 1, I think. Didn't quite see it on that plan, but I think some of the structures on the other proposals,
Yeah.
so they have to be relocated now.
Yeah, okay. And the road will be the first thing to happen?
Stage 1 is the the 3 lots of existing buildings, so they can be developed without road infrastructure.
Right.
So they've got their own access. But what's proposed is two stages to the balance, the rest of that subdivision.
Thank you.
Councillor Russell?
Thank you. As part of researching for this, I've visited the site and read all the report and the representations, and I still have a couple of questions. So if you wouldn't mind Shane, in the representations, the local community is pointing out at the need for open public space and in this site. And the preservation of mature trees, that those seem to be the most important things, really. And I have two questions about this. And so, would you be so kind to explain how does the council is guided to assess whether these or other locations are suitable for open public space? And the other question is, what are the limitations to asking for trees to be retained or replaced?
Through the Mayor. On the open space issue, so the assessment's primarily guided by the open space strategy from 2020 and council's policy. And that also informed the design, so that was information that the developer had from the outset. The open space strategy, it's one of the challenges. I appreciate the view that many people have expressed around wanting more open space in the area. Council's strategy and policy, though, seeks to not duplicate open space, so to make use of what we already have through improvements to the land, rather than take on extra land. And generally we apply a principle around 400 metres, as in that's a target we want to have an open space land within 400 metre walking distance of most lots, which can be achieved through Snake Hollow for this subdivision site. So on that basis, the strategy and the recommendation is to not take any extra land, and the associated recommendation is to take the public open space contribution, which is consistent with the strategy, would then be expended at Snake Hollow through improvements. So the subdivision is increasing the demand for open space. We're just saying that that demand can be met by Snake Hollow, particularly if we make some improvements to that, and those improvements could be the public toilet, which has been on the table for a while, and there's lots of other little improvements that can be made to make that a better space for the community.
Jen, can we get an image of
I'm sorry.
the Snake Hollow, charming in that Snake Hollow? So you what we're talking about.
While you're looking for that, could I just ask? Ask Convoy Road, when the land becomes available, I think I read it in the report, when the land becomes available along Convoy Road, there's a possibility of taking open space there, is that?
Yes.
Is that correct? Could we look at then, when that becomes developed anyway, public open space there and perhaps a playground? I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, in my mind, yes. So the land off Convoy Road can't be subdivided at the moment.
No.
If we get that opportunity, then open space would have to be considered.
And it might be a better position for perhaps a playground?
Well, certainly,
Depending on
if and when Convoy Road opened up, it's bigger space, so there's better opportunities to consider it. But I guess right in today's world, the subject site's sort of at the westernmost extent of that little pocket of residential development, so it's not central now, but if the settlement does grow to the west, it's certainly.
Thank you.
Through the chair, further to that, Convoy Road, where is that potential future development? We just had it up there.
It's
Have a little look.
it's in the ether really. It's the
So the constraints at the moment are
Yeah, so it's zoned rural, it's zoned in a way that you can't subdivide at the moment. And the regional land use strategy has a very low growth scenario. So it's effectively locked up land. In the older scheme, it was a reserve residential zone. And I guess in a way, it kind of is. And the current regional land use strategy is sort of saying that you can't develop it yet. But that could change. But I think, so that could be a 20-year sort of proposal. So I guess we've really just kind of looked at this subdivision with what we have now, and noted stakeholders a more central location.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If I may, again, the second question was about the trees. So what are the limitations that council has to asking for trees to be retained or replaced?
Through the mayor. So in the low density residential zone, we only can consider tree removal if the priority vegetation area overlay applies. So that overlay was put together by a consulting company who have a model really of different sets of data on conservation values and habitat modelling and the like. That same company that Sorell utilised has actually been utilised by every other council in Tasmania, so every council has the same model. So I guess the known data at the time when the scheme was being put through was funneled through this model, and no values were identified, and as a result, the priority vegetation area doesn't apply to the site. So what that really means is there is no head of power in the planning scheme to consider the vegetation removal that will result from this subdivision. There'll certainly be vegetation removal during construction. There's likely to be some remaining trees on individual lots, but they will need to be removed when houses are constructed, in all likelihood. But yeah, as I say, there's no head of power in the planning scheme for this site.
So to understand that better, if we don't have that overlay, there's not much that can be done. Is that correct?
Correct.
That overlay would need to be changed if we wanted to update what is value. But when was that done?
It would have been around 2020, 2021, that type of thing. Yeah. And so the government structured the new planning scheme in a way that natural values had to be mapped in an overlay. In older schemes, you had a bit more flexibility. But in this government scheme, if it's mapped, it's a relevant issue. If it's not mapped, it's not relevant. And I guess unfortunately with natural values and biodiversity in particular, the data that we have available to use is generally not ground truth. So a lot of it's modelling, or a lot of it's old knowledge, or it's never going to be a perfect representation of real world conditions. So there will always be instances where values that exist on the ground aren't mapped, and values that don't exist in the ground are actually mapped. So it's an imperfect method that we have to work with.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yeah, further to that one, thank you, Chair. So given that what's effectively in our LPS is based on that modelling, that predictive modelling, is there a capacity for us in future to recommend or to make changes based on something, based on action data? Is there a mechanism in the planning scheme for that in any way? Or is what we've got set? That's it.
Through me, no, nothing in the scheme is sort of set and forget. That can always be updated, and ideally, there will be some better mechanisms in place to regularly update these things. So a lot of our overlays are produced by the state government, or this wasn't directly produced by the state government. They funded the project, and it was done by each Tasmanian council in the same way. So it's the sort of thing you'd want to see updated collaboratively. And I think, look, there's a bit of work to be done, I guess, around those mechanisms.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering through the chair. Thank you, Shane, for answering my previous questions. Could you just clarify, lot 26 is going to be handed to, conveyed to the council prior to receiving a final plan survey. Lot 26 is going to contain the retention pond for the stormwater. Is the council doing the work on the retention pond, or is it the developer who's creating that retention pond? As all costs are involved, are going to be met by the person responsible. Who is that person responsible? And is it going to be a cost to the council, or is it going to be a cost to the developer? That's page 8 and 25.
Yeah, through the mayor, the developer will be responsible for constructing the basin. Yeah, so it'll be just another donated asset from a subdivision. So there's no cost to council involved in that.
Thank you.
We have Ish has had the developer expand that above what the bare minimum sizing requirement, because we do have some pressures downstream, and so we've upsized it. It should mean we don't have to expend any money downstream necessarily as a direct result of this proposal. But there are still, what's downstream inside is very undersized.
Thank you.
Just one more through the mayor. The fencing, that'll be totally, lot 26 will be totally fenced.
Yes.
Through it, and is that like a little laneway? It's like a laneway to access it? Is that right? Or?
So from the cul-de-sac turning head, there is a footway.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so there will be a footway through, and that'll link into the footway from Joel Avenue down to Terry Street. But within the block 26 proper, that will be the drainage basin will be fenced off because it's the sides are too steep. But the footway will be there, and the footway will take any, there's a big rain event and the basin overflows, it'll sort of channel through that footway.
Thank you.
Just following on from the trees, is there any room for introduced street trees on the verge there somewhere?
Through to the mayor. Not in this case, no. That's because of the open drains that have been proposed. So there's a 3 metre wide open drain on both sides of the road, which occupies quite a footprint. So it takes away the option that we normally have for this curving that.
Shame. Way of doing a bit of landscaping on that road. The other question, please. Renmore Court and the stormwater issues. Council's sort of going to work in with this subdivision. I assume, General Manager, that's not works for this financial year. It's when the actual subdivision. And at what stage do you see those works? Stage 1, 2, 3?
It's all to be determined. Infrastructure and access still needs to do a bit of modelling around exactly what's required.
So in one way, the subdivision will help alleviate some of the stormwater issues in that.
Yeah, it does give Renmore Court a pathway out. It doesn't have at the moment.
I noticed that the projection for traffic increase was 76 cars. Is that about right?
Yes.
25.
Yeah, that is about correct, yeah. They vary, but it's getting around seven traffic movements per house per day.
More question, if I may, through the chair?
Yes.
Two more
Yes.
actually.
So,
Firstly, just to clarify the speed limit, it's referred to as 60 kilometres per hour. Is that for the new road or the main road, or both?
The vehicle friendly Carlton River Road.
Carlton River Road. So what would the speed limit on the new road, the access road?
The default 50.
50?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the NRM comments on page 13 and 14, just the way the comment reads, well, if I could have some clarification on that, it says, the recommendations are to maintain all vegetation below 100 millimetres within 60 plus metres of building areas. And then later on, at the end says, keeping local character is important in that area, otherwise we'll lose habitat corridor for wildlife passing north, south of the lots. They seem to contradict one another. I just wondered how those comments have been applied in the permit.
I understand. I guess the first part of the NRM comments is with 100 mil height. That's the recommendation to the bushfire
So
report.
it's 100 metres from ground level, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess Divis, his views sort of been echoed by the representations that look, there are quality native trees on the property, but he comes back and says we don't have a regular sort of head of power to consider that issue further.
So in a perfect world, we perhaps might have mapped this differently. It might have had more protection of those natural values for the reasons that NRM officers identified, but that's not what we had for us.
That's correct. And I guess the other complication is that it is a residentially zoned property, so the balancing tree removal and housing is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And often, I think the reality is, regardless how much you try, you put a house on the resident, like if that was 1,200 square metre lots or 1,500 square metre lots or 2,000 square metre lots, that the impact is probably not going to be that different over time. You might retain one and a couple of extra trees, but it's still converting it a forest, and it's still require the majority of trees to be removed.
And that has been the case. So it's been zoned low density residential for how long? A long time.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
At least the 93.
Decades. Thank you.
Thank you. I have looked at the Tasmanian subdivision guidelines that's cited in the report, and I have some questions still. How is the 18-meter width road reservation and the 1.2-meter width footpath in condition 13 defined? Because in accounting for future proofing and Arctic transport, the planting of trees and shrubs and enhancing character, that the road reservation has a lot to do with. So yes, how's that defined? And how can we do better at defining it as how we want it?
Through there, I guess, look, I think 18 metres is the standard width for almost any road other than a very short cul-de-sac. In generally, you can do a lot of things within that 18 metres. The challenge that we have is with the unserviced area that is the southern beaches. We've adopted an open drain approach here, and that has important benefits in terms of water quality and character, versus the alternative of curb and gutter. But it does occupy quite a bit of the road reserve. Yeah. So look, I don't have a great answer for you. It's just a bit of it's always a bit of a balancing act, and things are much harder to achieve in the southern beaches than elsewhere.
So is it that, not now, because, so what I'm understanding, what I'm hearing so far is that we're following the guidelines to ask the developers to, so it's like a standard guideline
Yeah. Yes.
for all councils
Yeah.
in Tasmania, correct?
Yes.
And so we're following that guideline that says 18 meters. Yet in the southern beaches, we do have a way of doing stormwater, like channeling stormwater that takes a lot of that 18-meter width. So, and that, in this case, might take away the possibility to plant trees and do things beyond just having that drainage. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, so that also takes a little bit of the character when taking away the space to plant trees or to have even open space along the road. How can we consider this for future to have a more specific, so area-specific type road reservation design or guidelines for us, and not just the generic statewide that are not really great for this area? Is that a possibility?
So yes, yeah, those things are certainly possible, and councils can adopt variations or departures from standards. I guess we need a lot of work to figure out and understand, exactly what council wants in all cases. I guess we do get mixed views on that. We hear a lot in the community don't like the concrete footpaths and the urban look. But I guess as a whole, that's a part of Southern Beaches community. We don't really know what the majority feel, majority want. So there would need to be a lot of work to be done.
Could that be included in the local area master plan we're going to do eventually for the southern beaches? Look at it.
That's a good view. So that's all.
Any further questions?
Thank you. Yes, just one. So what I'm hearing so far is that although the community is bringing a lot of concerns, the way this subdivision is designed does seem to comply and with all the standards and the even the character around this lot is already set by subdivisions. And although the taking of that public space is creating frustration with the community, it might not be the right place to put open space. in there, so the right place would be another one, potentially, so, and, yeah, so is that, what I'm seeing is that balancing, but also, the limitations that council faces to, address these concerns are pretty, complex in this case, aren't they?
Yes, zoning mergers is always challenging, given the lack of infrastructure. And on the open space, issue, I guess what the strategy is saying is the community overall will get better, value and enjoyment from, open space that is well developed, that has better play equipment or has better connectivity and paths, or has a public toilet, convenient, those sorts of things, rather than just having bits of land that we don't have the resources to develop to that standard.
Thank you.
Further questions? All right, so the question is, do we follow the recommendation to approve the 25 lot subdivision at 223, 227 Carlton River Road, subject to provisions which we've already outlined? Those in favour? Seems to be unanimous. Next piece of business we move into is page 41 of my document. And this is a proposal for a minor amendment to reduce the floor area for two model dwellings at 10 Vancouver Street, Midway Point. Are there any questions about this one? Oh, I need to have a mover, don't I? Moving it. Councillor Reid will help me out there. Thank you very much. Councillor Torrens. Any questions on this?
Through the chair?
Please.
Just to clarify, this is a minor adjustment to, on a matter that was previously refused, is that correct? Or is this, I'm using it for something else?
Possibly, yes. Possibly. No, the 2-unit development was approved at a previous
Oh,
spa
okay.
meeting.
Right, so it had been approved,
Yes.
and this is now improving it further.
Yeah, so this is an amendment, so as per council.
I was confused with something else. Thank you.
Yeah. Any further questions while we're zooming in on? Like how Vancouver Street intersects with Honolulu Street, when geographically they're quite remote from one another, aren't they? In the world. Well, if there are no further questions on this, we'll, yes, we do. Yes.
No, no.
All right. Talking in favour of this.
Yes.
We are unanimously.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Now. This is a proposal for a 3-lot subdivision, boundary adjustment of 2217 Arthur Highway copy. It's around about the service station. Do I have a mover? Councillor Gatehouse and Councillor Nichols, thank you. Any questions on this one?
Thank you. Yes, I have a question about the submission here, the representation, talking about the water course that runs along the back fence of 9 Prebles Road that floods into the backyard of the property. And so how is these representation being addressed? Shane, please.
Through the mayor, I guess to be short, it's not. So in the proposal, what the proposal effectively does is create lot 1 and lot 2 with an adjustment of lot 3. So lot 1 and lot 2 already have the existing buildings on it, so in effect there's no development proposed now or future development to consider. It all already exists, so there's no change to that natural water course associated with this. So it's a pre-existing issue that's not affected in any way by the proposal. And so what we're then proposing a position that's really a civil matter that the owners can address and should address, but it's not something that we feel that we have the power to intervene.
So is this something that has been brought up to the proponent?
Through the mail, I haven't spoken to them. I'm not sure if we have, but they certainly would have seen the agenda report, so we can convey some more information to them as well.
Yeah. Thank you. So just to make sure that this is just dividing, no proposal, so any civil issues don't apply in this time?
Yeah, as there's no
Are not assessed?
there's no development enabled by this, as they're both already developed.
Further questions? Put to the vote, those in favour? Unanimous. What further matters do we have, GM? Done. Draw this section of the meeting to a close, and thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you, sir.